Welcome to the United States of America podcast. I am your host, Niti, and we are broadcasting live from the Food Church here on North Carolina. If you've missed past episodes, please be sure to take the time to watch the first episode and watch the rest like a documentary. We are a people at peace, and we have declared peace to all nations around the world. This is not a marketing or a promotional channel, and we're shining a light on the knowledge that is being hidden from you. We are sharing the truth about your birthright and your inheritance. We have moderators who are assisting in the comment section. Be kind and self-govern, and if you have any questions, please put them in all caps and only enter them once per show. I am joined on air with Greg Clarkson, regenerative farmer and ASN on Kansas. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Niti.
How's it going?
Good. Good.
Well, we know that Anna is dealing with a situation right now, and she is due to join us anytime. So we'll all just be patient. And I thought that maybe you and I could, find something that we could talk about. Anna's asked us to fill in a little bit for her. So
Yeah.
how'd you like to start? Thank you for covering for me last week, by the way.
It was really good. It was a great interaction with Anna, and we covered a number of farming topics.
Oh, it was gold. It was gold. I really, really loved it. And I think a lot of people enjoyed that.
Yeah. I've just been pulling the thread more and more on stuff like that, looking at how to get the farmers set up to be out of the system. And, so there's so much aspect to it. Even once the banks go live, there's still a system around us, right? And so they're going to need help.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing is I've taken on the duty or role as a treasurer on the Kansas Assembly recently.
Wow.
And we've talked about, when the banks do go live and we need some brick and mortar, I offered up my bank, my old bank building. So we'll see what happens there.
Nice.
Quite a bit of good stuff going on. I missed the podcast from last night, the Monday night podcast, but I think they were talking about, I heard through another Kansas Assembly member, they were asking for help with people coming into the GFG to help as they go live with trading. So that's good news. And maybe we can hit Anna up about that later. I know you got some things to talk about. So,
well, we have several things. I think that it's like she was saying, like there's so many things that are going on right now.
There are, and
she's just really making sure to stay on top of Trump and the administration and, all the things that they're trying to roll out. How are the farmers that you're speaking with receiving anything that you're talking about as far as all of this goes? Or are they waiting for, or do they believe, that Trump's going to save them? Because, I know Joel knows better and they're trying to pass all this legislation, now they're trying to inject hogs and beeves with they're always trying to do something to interfere with the health of the livestock. They know how imperative the meat is.
Yep. That's right. Yeah, it's the key to all of it, right? So they know that. I would say the reaction is guarded. They're guarded, and that's probably how you get from Joel. He's a bit guarded from that perspective. And the traditional farmer, if there is such a thing, they just came out with the USDA. They're going to give them some money. They're going to do whatever they can to hang on to this monocrop. They being not the farmer, but the system, to this monocrop system. So it's tough. It's a tough situation. These guys are up to their eyeballs in debt and do so every year. And you don't just wake up one day and say, I think I'll just change for them. And nobody can, but it's particularly tough when you get multi-million dollars of investment and you're dependent on a system. So I think it's just one of those things, one step at a time.
You mean the debt?
They're is what we need.
Yeah, it's the debt that they're stuck in. You're saying investment. I hardly think that they look at it that way. I believe that they're imprisoned.
Yeah, they're land poor. Yeah, they're land poor, as it's called. They might have land or generational land or whatever. But that land is required to pay off the equipment debt and the inputs debt and all that. So yeah, you're right. They're stuck. They're stuck in the system. So it's tough.
Yeah, like you say, land poor. They're shackled to this, you guys. I don't know any grown man who will invest the way that they do into the land. And then the only option is literally to walk away from everything. Like,
That's
just
right.
leave it there.
Yep.
So yeah, they cannot really just do that.
And so I guess another thought on that, and we had the podcast with Mookie on Terra Australis Sunday, and this is a big reason why the suicide rate in the rural areas, not just rural America, but rural areas, particularly farmers, is so high.
Right.
It's tragic because they are under such intense pressure, and it's a sad situation. We got to correct it. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, so, I know that Joel's like trying to be helpful, but like for all the folks out there who don't really know, let me see if I can share my screen. I should be really good at this now, right? I think I got it. Let's see here. This will let me.
That's a lot smoother. All right.
I did it. Okay, great. Well, so in this, Joel is saying, today I received, the following letter and request to add my signature, and Commissioner Martin McCary with the USDA is asking, Joel, because what they're saying. Listen to this nonsense. On behalf of the undersigned organizations, we write to urge you to respond to the recently filed petition for reconsideration and ban on restrict ractopamine, whatever that is, in meat production. Ractopamine is a dangerous drug used to rapidly grow muscle in cows, pigs, and turkeys that also causes animals' bodies to suffer tremors, lesions, and deterioration, elevates meat consumers' heart rates, and harms the environment. I mean, I'm sure that they don't even know all the crazy things that this can do. Oh, look. Hey, Anna.
I'm sorry, guys. This was a crazy day.
Hey, no worries. No worries at all. We were killing time over here. We were going over some farm stuff, things that are going on with the farmers. And, hopefully you've taken a deep breath and you've centered,
Well, Harold went through all of this treatment, and he's really much better, but he's been exhausted. And so he had to take some time out and just cool his jets and rest and eat right and, recuperate. Well, he needs some help still around the house and things like that. It will be some time before we actually see the ultimate result of what he's gone through. So he's in this kind of transition phase where we don't really know what to expect, but we do know that he continues to need help with housework, say. Well, we had 2 different groups of people show up here today. It was a communication poo-pah. They were supposed to show up 2 weeks from now. And so we had a double crew. And I had to go back and sort through, no, you're supposed to be here then, and you're supposed to be there now. And it's just one of those. But I had to deal with it because we've got all these people that are intent on doing good deeds. And
I mean, this is what the American government looks like. Sometimes we got to stop and go clean the bathroom or do some dishes or, make some food. Or people are always complaining about our American government, but at the same time, what does it look like? This is what it looks like, friends. It looks like you just roll your
Taking care of
sleeves.
your elders.
That's right. You got to just get in there and do it. And, praise the Lord. But yeah, I mean, listen, I am so excited. I know that like all the things that you guys have been experiencing are looking positive, but we have to know that your body can't go through a quantum leap and you survive it. It's got to be done, naturally.
Right.
And so, first there's going to be that whole detoxification, but then you can't poison yourself on top of having done this. This is something I observe all the time in my coaching, Anna. People want to just detox and they just talk about the detox. But hello, if you're going to do the detoxing, then you have to do a restoration, and that would require you not to continue to poison yourself. So you can't detox yourself and keep poisoning yourself or going back and doing the same thing that you were already doing. You're going to have to do a reset and know better, right?
Right. Well, and there are all those different aspects to health. I mean, it's a organism. It's an organic process. Health isn't just a steady state. It's a dynamic state, and it's always changing, right?
Right.
So, Harold is not only detoxed, but he has undergone a wiping of his cellular memory.
Wow.
So that, his cells are not remembering to build scar tissue. His cells are not remembering to create a hypertrophy of the prostate gland. His cells are not remembering to show old bone breaks.
Wow. Nice.
So suddenly the cell memory has been wiped and reset to factory settings. And he has a chance, if he is faithful and takes it, to improve his eating habits and his drinking habits and everything else to support a fully functional system again.
Yeah.
So
what a gift. What a gift.
Yeah, it's quite staggering. And I'm sure, he's going through some moments of disorientation where he just kind of sits there and goes, what's happened to me?
Because hopefully he doesn't remember all the bad things, and he doesn't want to have to go back to cravings and all of these other things that we know that we don't want to do if we want to move forward, in a better way.
Yeah, well, I think it is a little bit disorienting. For example, he was in the kitchen, bobbling around doing stuff. Shannon came in and just kind of stopped and looked at him, and he had this bemused look on his face, and he said, I don't know if you know this or not, Harold, but you haven't been able to do that in over a year. And all of a sudden, Harold just stopped and went, oh.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot to process, and to receive, and to, they're going to be kind of in a twilight zone, so to speak, I guess, for a little while, right? Like as they.
Yeah, it's hard because, you take so many things for granted. You've been able to feed your dog all your life up until 3 months ago. And now you're suddenly able to feed your dog again.
Yeah.
It's
incredible. I mean, and what about Shannon?
Well, he's got a whole different series of issues. And he wasn't able to do the med bath. He's only able to do the frequency medicine part of it because he has a replacement hip. He was wounded in the service and has a fake hip. So the med bath wouldn't work for him, but the frequency medicine is what we're trying with him to see if some of his problems can be addressed using simply the frequency medicine rotations. And it seems to be helping him. But the weird thing is that it's Well, as I say, it's an organic process. Everything is in this system of dynamic flux. And after you do this kind of reset, it takes a while for the organism to settle down and kind of relax and be back in a more normalized state. And so it is kind of an odd recovery period here.
Oh, I mean, we're the body electric, so I'm sure it's very shocking. Right?
Well, yeah.
Well, frequency shift. So.
Well, and just the number of parasites that we all harbor, and all of the parasite waste products that get shunted through our systems that are foreign to us, that cause constant inflammation.
Mm.
Well,
yeah.
It's one of the biggest health crises in America, and nobody talks about it.
Well, they're fermenting. 99.9% of Americans, especially, I don't know about everybody around the world, but I would say everybody, since we're in this one world system, most people who are on a standard diet, like under the corporatocracy, they're all fermenting, everything inside. And we're not made to do that. We don't have a colon long enough to be able to do that. It's the whole problem. Like, stop comparing us to gorillas. We don't have an extra long colon. And that's the reason why, we have to have beneficial bacteria and other kind of bacteria. Like, we are made up with all of these different beings. But at the end of the day, they have trained everyone to be sugar burners under the guise of the fact that, the brain needs sugar. No, the brain can work perfectly fine on ketones, and it doesn't require that. And it would be way less harmful, and it would eliminate the whole possibility of all of the cancers. But they know that they're poisoning us. They know that they're making drug addicts out of us. It's the reason, for the whole pharmacology. This is the plan. It's not that they're going to starve us. I mean, they're planning to starve us. They've been already doing that. The actual, the mental illness that people are suffering with is 1,000,000% a side effect of malnourishment, as is all the cancers and all the metabolic dysfunction. You can have all the food in the world and still be 1,000,000% malnourished, and not just because your liver is clogged, because that it is clogged. You are suffering with fatty liver disease. You're suffering with all of these issues. But how did that happen? That happened because you're eating a whole bunch of man-made crap that's not natural, and it's interfering with your ability for all your systems to operate naturally. So if you want to return to nature, you can't go back to the grocery store. You just can't. You got to go outside and go back into nature. It's a different situation.
If you think about it, there are two branches to the Food and Drug Administration. And the food was part of the bioweaponry against us. They just announced that Russian parasites were deliberately introduced into our food chain here after the fall of the Soviet Union. A specific parasite called the SKOL, or skull parasite, was added to grain products coming out of Russia. And so everybody has these SKOL parasites in their pancreas that they basically affect the interstitial cells that create the insulin. So now we have this skyrocketing incidence of diabetes too. The
insulin resistance and the grains, they, the fat, these corn oils, these seed oils are also able to just hold those parasites, in a stasis. And then they're making everything with seed oils and feeding it to everybody. So, you got to stop eating the seed oils. You got to stop allowing that. They should be banned. All the vegetable oils are a problem, and that's what they do. They're preservatives, and they preserve all of these bad actors, and then you end up with all these problems. And fascinatingly, there's a war against meat and a war against the livestock and the war against animal fats and saturated fats. Well, guess what? That's what rebuilds your liver, which builds everything, and which actually restores and counters all of these things and gives you the ability to indicate all of these things. But that requires you to eliminate things. You can't just be detoxing and not eliminating poison. You have to know that all of it works hand in hand. And I think that, the problem is that they've got everybody trained into wanting to be able to just go get the pill, go get the one antidote, go get the one thing, or people are just sitting around investing in, lots of money in like a bazillion different things that they're putting in, but they're also still not changing what they're doing with the bagel every morning and the donuts and the toast and all the breads and all the, whatever, pies and cakes and cookies, and it's cakes on cakes, it's all the time. And they won't stop celebrating everything with food instead of, I just want to celebrate with you, Anna, or with you, Gregory. Like, I just want to spend time with you. I don't need to spend time with food. I need to spend time with you.
Yeah, this goes deeper though, but go out and drive across the midsection of the country. What's growing? What's growing? Yeah, what's growing is everything you're talking about. And what do the farmers do? They chase yield. They chase yield because the commodity prices have not kept up with inflation, like our dollar.
I mean, the commodity rigging, and then they will only allow you to buy land if you are going to grow one of those three things.
And that's where I was going to get to.
That's the other problem. And you have the only way to do that crap is to use those stupid machines that we already know will only allow you to let them fix your machine.
Yeah.
Again, another price. It's like, it's all stacked and layered on top of these guys, Anna. On top, stacks. It's everything stacked against them. I mean, look, and so we got somebody asking about our LRO. You guys, we're getting close.
We have questions on that too.
We got questions for Anna about that too. Yeah. This is all coming together. All of these things, the health of the people is a reflection of our soil, our land and soil. Yeah. Whatever is happening with the land and soil is going to be the reflection of the people that are walking it. And that's what me and Greg are working so hard to heal.
The cattle herd is at an all-time, well, maybe not an all-time low, but it's as low as it's been since I think the 40s.
Right.
Just kind of take that in. How many years that's been. It's as low as it's been since the 1940s. And at the same time, we have these monocrop systems, and that's the only way you can get the loan is if you fall into the system, or that's the only way you can get the grant or the money they're doling out. And then if you don't want to farm it, you can set it aside and they'll pay you not to do anything with it, which means you can't put cattle on it. You can't hay it. You can't touch it. It just sits there. So the whole promotion, when you really look at the grand scheme of things, is to eliminate the ruminant animals and to grow these particular grains that are chasing yield. They're genetically modified. And
promoting bugs and problems with the bugs.
Promoting bugs, yep. And that parasite you were talking about that's come over in the wheat, that's where it really came over, was in the wheat primarily. But then you also look at the mycotoxins.
Yes.
And the mycotoxins are just, there's, that fungus basically. We have to just slowly shift this around. That's the thing. We can sit here and identify what all is wrong. Now let's figure out how to correct it. And the other way
they do it is what we were talking about on Sunday. Anna, we did a special episode with Mookie, and we were discussing the land grabs on California, because they're like saying, okay, well, that land that they're grabbing Gregory, I found out somebody made a post in response to our show on Sunday that that was originally slated out in the 70s to be a national park in that area. And so, oh, well, they preserve it, all these sustainable land, whatever. It's all crap, you guys, for them they say they're protecting the land. It's all protected. The environment's being protected. Bullshit. They don't want you to be able to have the buffalo roaming. They don't want us to have all the cattle out there. Why? Because you have to have animals to have plants. Full stop. You have to have animals to have soil. Period. If you don't have them massaging the earth and using their magnetic energy to draw up the ancient seedbed, then you will not have plants. You will not.
Yep.
So all the vegetarians can just be as offended as they want to be. But you know what? You have to have the livestock to have the vegetables, to have everything. This is a very intricate hoop. Anna, you sent me this beautiful video about the historical, teachings of all the gurus and the Vedas and everybody. And they knew that there were over 800 million species of life giving force on this planet. And we have only discovered about 1 million. Or something like under 1 million, or just at 1 million, or something like that. Not the 800 million that they taught about and wrote about in those scriptures. And
but
so
we keep finding that they were right about all sorts of things. Yeah, it's monotonous. It seems like every week there's another discovery where the information in the Vedas turns out to be right.
You know what's fascinating about that, Anna? I mean, I know that there's a lot of Christians out there and other religionists who are like, we don't care about the Indian religion, whatever. We don't care about the Vedas. There's Indians who don't believe in the Vedas. They don't. There's Indians who don't believe that. They can't believe that the Vedas are true, and that's so sad and mind-boggling, and just that's how bad the brainwashing is.
Well, I read a lot, and I have to keep up to date on international news.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite sources is an English-based foreign news service, is the Hindustani Times.
Yes.
But yeah, so but the Vedas and other parts of Hindu scripture heritage contain so much information about health, biology, the structure of matter, the structure of the cosmos, relationships between what you might call powers of the earth and the sun and the moon, and how everything is constructed. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about physics or math or sacred geometry or physics, and in other areas like astronomy. The records are turning out to be true. Everybody has tried to say that these scriptures written in Sanskrit from thousands of years ago were all about charming myths and esoteric beliefs and all this stuff. No, it's true. And there's proof now that there was a war in India 7,000 years ago that explains a lot about what has happened since then. But
plasma wars. You're talking about the plasma wars, right?
Well, that was like a later war, but it fills in the gaps between the Great Plasma War 32,000 years ago and now 7,000 years ago there was a similar collapse. And we need to know these things, and we need to take them seriously, because it's not just history, it's science, it's math, it's biology that is, it's not just sacred because it's sacred because someone said so. Right. It's sacred because it's true.
It's irrefutable. They're actually proving it with the stars, with the alignment, with the historical facts of tracking the sky, and other evidences. But I just want you to know, Anna, that Rohit and I appreciate everything that you share, and it means so much to us, because there were so many of those things that we were beginning to question as we were learning more and more about this, truth. And I'm really glad to know that everything that we learned wasn't really for naught, but we just have to view it through this other lens of actual reality, when we have a whole bunch of our ancestors and people that are, our elders there, that just think it was a story, And I'm like, oh my gosh, it is incredible when Anna is sending us something and going, this is true, look at it. And we're just like, oh my God. Yeah, it's incredible. So we're really digging into that. One of the things that my husband's really excited to do when the banks go live is to go to some of those places and see some of that which you shared, because we saw some of those things as babes. Like, I remember going there and seeing some of the things, but I want to see it now, as with a new lens, and just see what does it feel like now, because now we're dying to take our kids there to just see what it looks like, and for them to see it and show our moms and say, look at this from this lens. What do you think? Oh my gosh. Okay. So may I take this into a little bit of a different direction for a moment, Anna? You've been speaking so much lately about nationality and our standing and how important it is. I have a weird question based on a conversation that we had with someone here who, on North Carolina, we have, Native Americans, just like people. We have all of these indigenous nations. You've written a lot about it in many of the articles, but we're not really clear on this one point. So I wanted to ask you, like, speaking in terms of nationality and citizenship, then, there's Native Americans and even these other nations that we share the land with here, like the Moroccans, whom you've written several articles about. But in none of the articles are you really clearly discussing, or I'm missing it, I might just not have found the right one, about indigenous natives and wanting to declare themselves as an American, or, like getting involved on the assembly. And so if they were to get involved on the assembly, like here on North Carolina, we have Cherokee Nation that's indigenous to our state, but they're part of the Cherokee Nation. I mean, like, they're Native. And so do they declare that they're American? I mean, and then do they get to help on the assembly? Or I don't get it. Like, I'm asking a question. Like, we want obviously to work with everybody, but would they want to do that? Is there any benefit to them, or is it not as beneficial? I mean, I don't know.
Well, we're nation states, right?
Yes.
And many nations can occupy the same space, right? So, for example, we have the Winnebago Ho-Chunka Nation in Wisconsin.
Oh.
They also have traditional hunting grounds and area where they have lived in all the way down to Nebraska. Okay. But anyway, the Ho-Chunka Nation is in Wisconsin. And so the nation is Ho-Chunka, Winnebago, but they're also born within the state of Wisconsin. So they're Wisconsinites. You see, it's a dual nationality that way. And it doesn't harm anybody that that's the way it is. It just means that you have your own culture, your own language, your own traditions, your own costumes, music, fine. I mean, that is really no different than someone from Denmark coming over here, right? That's a different nationality. So, they're Danes as far as their ethnic and cultural identity goes, but they're Wisconsinites because they're living in Wisconsin, right?
Sure.
And it really doesn't harm anybody. And it's as long as your affinity is for the good of the people around you and the state and the nation and the it's really no big deal that we have approximately 350 different nations, people of different nationalities living in this country all together, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're a dual national, not a dual citizen, a dual national. So you're both Winnebago and Wisconsinite, and that's just fine.
And so if they want to participate in the reconstruction or participate on the assembly, then are they able to be ASCs too, or no?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're
Well,
not
good.
allied to a government. They're allied to a nationality, to their cultural identity, to their race, to their religion, to their language. They're not foreign agents of another government that's here to, compete or do something drastic or bad. They're just, they have their own identity. Okay. So of course they can participate. I've worked with the native nations for 50 years, and it's only common sense that everybody should honor their nation, where they came from, their people, their families, their traditions. I mean, we think nothing of it, that we have entire neighborhoods and city sectors that are Italian or Jewish or Japanese. We think nothing of it, that we have all this vast melting pot of people here. So it's really nothing that we haven't lived with and been part of all our lives. We're just kind of having to step back a little and think about it in terms of nationality, citizenship. What's the difference between a nationality and a citizenship? What does it mean to be a dual national versus a dual citizen? And I think a lot of people got confused and were thinking of dual citizens as dual nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And those two things are quite different. But in terms of dual nationality, I would say probably 2/3 of the population identifies as a dual national because they have a significant identification with the culture that they came from. So in terms of nationality, it's a whole different story than citizenship. And the native nations are, they're, the way things work, they are dual nationals at birth.
So is this, I guess I always look at it like ethnicity versus nationality. And are you saying it's kind of the same? I just want to know because, like, I'm Indian, right? But I was totally born here. I'm a New Yorker. And
Right.
and I'm also like a naturalized North Carolinian since I was a year old. So,
Right.
I'm a Carolina girl, but I have my, ethnic background for which, I'm also very well versed and knowledgeable and, we've very practiced, I guess, also. So, this is very confusing for a lot of people. So I really appreciate you breaking it out because we need to be able to honor everybody in the ways that,
Yeah, well, and our language does that. Like I'm a German American, right?
Yeah.
I'm, if you look at me, the blueprint that made this was German. Okay. Okay, so I'm a German American. I was born in this country. For the last 2 generations prior on one side and forever on the other. We're Germans, but factually, we live here. We defend this country. So how do you deal with that? By being a dual national, by recognizing that, yeah, you are a member of a nation that came here or that lived here originally, as far as anyone knows, and just accept that, okay, this is a great thing. I'm part of two wonderful traditions. This, embrace it. Be happy and proud that you came from India. There's a grand tradition, a marvelous culture, and I'll be proud of being a German. And, next door neighbor can be proud of being Polish, and we'll all be happy and we'll share food,
And knowledge and the diversity of that knowledge. And that's the fun part when you start learning about their ties to the various traditions and the history and all of that good stuff too.
And everybody has something to add. Everybody's got knowledge. Everybody has a remedy. Everybody has this little secret trick that they take for granted because they grew up in that culture. But then, the people next door don't know it, and so they suffer.
Yeah.
And by sharing that information, by opening up that conversation and not being afraid of each other just because we're different,
yeah.
Then you really lock into the richness of humanity, and you start realizing that, hey, everybody's got something to contribute here. Everybody's got an insight. Everybody's got a history, and that way we not only live together better, but we also live better individually because we gain from that sharing.
Yep. I got a funny story on that, Anna, where you talk about that. I grew up in a little rural town here in Kansas, where I live now. Population 748. And that's probably in the town. If you get out further, maybe we're 1,000. But my first job out of college, I went to work for a little company called Motorola. They used to make phones and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked in Austin, Texas at a facility down there, and there was 10,000 people in the facility.
Wow.
And you talk about a shock. But what was really interesting to me is I met people from Vietnam, people from India, people from Korea, all over. And, and I did exactly what you just described. The gentleman from Korea invited me over and we had bulgogi. I'd never had that before in my life. I love it. It's one of my favorite dishes to this day. And then just all that, a lot in food, more, I guess it's easier to share with the food. But it was really, really fun and really eye-opening to get that experience. So I can really appreciate what you're saying there.
Well, and it's also, each culture has its insights.
Yeah.
The Winnebago, when someone dies, they hold a celebration of life, and they have a dinner with the dead person's favorite food. Everybody remembers the fun, things about them. Yeah. If anybody wants to cry, they go outside and cry alone. Then they come back and everybody laughs and jokes and carries on. Yeah. They have a totally different, they understand grief. They understand sorrow. But that's something that you're supposed to keep between yourself and God, so to speak. You're supposed to do your grieving privately and to make the effort to remember all of the wonderful things about the deceased person. What did they add to your life? What did they add to the community? Um, you know, and so it's a different tradition, but it's a good tradition. Their concept, we don't own the land owns us. What an insight.
Yep.
And yet it's true. It's observably true. I mean, where do we all come from? The land. Where do we return to? The land. Okay. Yep. And no wonder they were looking at the Europeans, staking out their little garden plots and their farm fields and, claiming ownership.
Yeah.
And no wonder they looked at them like they were absolutely stark raving bonkers and just kind of nodded and went, right.
Yeah. It's funny. I went, you mentioned the Danes, because I suspect there's probably a lot of Danes up in Wisconsin area. But with my job at Motorola, I went over to Denmark and lived there for 6 months. And it was really interesting. And the one thing that really stands out is, I'll just say us Americans, right? Us Americans have this picture of a Danish in our mind, the pastry, fruit-filled jelly. That's not what it is. I'm here to tell you. Once I got over there, I was like, well, where are the Danishes at? They said that's an American thing.
Right, just like pizza.
Yeah.
Go to Italy and ask for pizza. No, that's an American adaptation.
Yep.
It's
funny.
But just a food expressions. One of my favorite new words is Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian, waha. When somebody's giving you a big story and it's all just talk, no walk, it's waha. Isn't that wonderful?
I like it.
Yeah. And almost every day I learn something from other cultures.
Yeah.
And so that is an enrichment to me.
Yeah.
That's not threatening to me. That's an enrichment. That's a gift. That's a precious sharing that humanity was meant to share. Have you ever read the Hopi prophecies?
No.
Well, I'll see if I can dig up some of the videos that have been done on this. The Hopis have a prophecy that at the end of time, the races of man, the black race, the red race, the yellow race, and the white race will come together. And they'll come from the four directions, right? And they will each bring their gifts, their insights, their powers, their technologies, and everything. They'll all come together. Now, each group has like a different assignment. One group is looking at the question of what. Another group is looking at the question of why. Another group is looking, and they're all bringing the fruit of their labor and their thinking and their effort back to the whole for the benefit of all. And really, we need to focus in on that kind of thinking. I'm not a globalist, but I'm not a rabid nationalist that thinks that there's only one nation.
Right.
We are many nations, many cultures, and that is just right and in line with nature.
Yeah.
I mean, think of how many different insects there are, and how many different kinds of flowers, and how many different kinds of trees and stones and minerals. I mean, we are alive and in this incredibly dynamic environment because the creation loves diversity. It endlessly creates diversity. There is no such thing as a homogeneous biosphere.
Right. Yeah. I experienced that firsthand my first trip to Hong Kong. What you eat over there is entirely different than what you eat in the U.S., in America, and even Europe for that matter. And just the plant, but it's because of the different species of plants and the animals. It's that diversity you're talking about. And I can't say that I necessarily liked everything, but I tried everything.
Well, you go to India. Just travel from the south of India to the north of India, and you've already gone through 15 different cultures.
Right.
Minimally.
Different cuisines.
Minimally. I mean, in New Delhi alone, there's more than 30, 40, 50, in all the languages, Most Indian.
I've never been in Niti, so when we go, I want to go. I want to go to India. I've never been there.
I mean, I'm telling you what, like, most of the people there speak minimally 7 languages.
Wow.
Because there's so many dialects and so many cultures like within each of the areas. And I mean, talk about diversity. I don't know. I don't even know all of it because I grew up, I'm a Carolina girl. If I was over there, I might know more of it. But when I speak to my cousins or people who did grow up over there, I mean, one of my cousins grew up and her dad was a brigadier in the Army. And so, they were everywhere. And she was like, I don't even know all the things. I can't possibly, because it's so diverse. There's so much. You can't possibly know everything. So even the Indians don't know. It's like,
the story that I always heard from the Motorola people when they would travel to India, like I said, I never got a chance to go, but the funniest story I always hear is he was driving back to the airport at like 2 a.m. and it was a 6-lane road and there's nobody out on the road. There's 2 taxi drivers on like a 6-lane road and they're right on each other's tail honking at one another the whole way to the airport.
That sounds about right, because they don't know what to do when it's that quiet. They're just
they were just looking for somebody to pester.
We got to complain about something. Let's just honk at each other.
Yeah.
No, you can see the diversity in the natural world around you, right? So why is everyone so surprised that we have a vast diversity of people?
Right.
And why should anyone think that that's wrong? And why should anyone be so afraid of anyone and anything that isn't the same as they are?
Oh, I mean, maybe because they went to school, Anna.
Well, it really doesn't make any sense, does it, when you step back from it? And on top of that, we should notice that each individual is an individual. We don't come in a group. We're not manufactured en masse with all the same characteristics and thoughts and virtues and vices. So, where does this prejudice against an entire race, for example, come from? It's illogical. It's crazy. I mean, each individual is who they are.
Yeah. So,
it may be more difficult that we have to actually deal with the fact that everybody's different. Okay. It might be sloppy and lazy and easier to just say, all black people are this way, or all yellow people are that way, or, but where does that come from? There's no basis in logic for that. No. There's no basis in reality for that.
No.
Because when we're standing there toe to toe with somebody, we damn well know that they're an individual. Yeah. And that we have to be dealing with them as an individual, if we have any sense at all, right?
Yep.
And yet you have all these groups that are, homeophobic, or they're, they have a deep prejudice against black people, or they have a prejudice against Italians or Jews or whatever. And they just have these big kind of blanket statements in their brains that, yeah, all Jews are this way, all blacks are lazy, whatever it is that they have in that little basket, that labeled basket in their brain, and they just don't seem to stop and go, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
It makes no sense. It's not supportable logically.
as I went to travels, I can say now that I have friends that I met in Korea. I have friends that I met in Japan. I have friends that I met obviously in Denmark because I spent so much time there. Everywhere I went, most often, if I was there for any period of time, a week or two, you would just meet somebody that you were just natural friends with. You would just hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
And they're entirely different. Particularly the Asian societies are very different than what I was used to. But, I remember the last time I was in Hong Kong, in fact, Walter, because they take on English names. So Walter was his English name. And boy, he wanted to show me Hong Kong that last night. And he wanted me to eat this and he wanted me to eat that. I got to tell you, I was so miserable on that 16-hour flight home the next day because he wanted me to try everything that Hong Kong had to offer. And, but, it's just, you're right. He's just an individual, grew up in a completely different environment than me. Completely. You couldn't be more different, actually. And we got to working together and developed a friendship. And there you go. So, yeah.
So we are all individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have a culture and an ethnicity and a tradition that we're part of when we're born into a family, right? And so there's nothing wrong with that we have a vast diversity. It's natural. It's the way the world is. Look around you at the earth, how many different kinds of horses are there?
Yeah.
How many different kinds of dogs and cats, even without man's meddling and breeding programs? Why should we be any different?
Yep.
So yes, we have blonde, blue-eyed Germans who have shoulders like linebackers, okay? And we have, beautiful exotic ladies from India with curling black hair. We're all different. It's all good. Why fight? Why be scared of each other? This is ridiculous. Somebody's making money on pitting us against each other. Somebody's making money by scaring us. Somebody's manipulating us for evil ends, and we're standing around buying into it. No. We have to be smarter than that.
When I found out I was going to Denmark, you talk about these stereotypes we have in our minds. My first thought was, oh, the land of the tall blondes. This is going to be wonderful. I didn't tell my wife that, by the way. but you know what, you get there and it's not the things that I had been stereotyped to were not true. I mean, to some extent, maybe a little bit, but what you realize, Denmark's flat. Denmark's very much like Kansas, except they got seas wrapped all the way around them, right? But otherwise, they grow crops, they farm, they fish. We don't so much here, but they're just a lot of rural conservative people. And I really found that I had a lot more in common with them, other than the fact that I couldn't speak their language and I couldn't read anything. I would go to the grocery store and my observation skills went through the roof because I didn't talk. So I just took everything in. And when I had to go shop for myself, it was all buying it by look and hand gestures and a lot of that. So your observation skills really increase a lot. But at the end of the day, they're a lot more like Kansans than I would have ever thought.
Well, and at a very basic level, we're all more like each other than we would ever guess.
We got the same needs, same basic needs.
And our blood is red.
Yep.
And our hearts beat.
That's right. That's right.
So all these things that separate us and all these things that scare us about diversity, we should just let go of it. You know, the,
Mhm.
the creator has a purpose for a pine tree, for a birch tree, for a hickory, for an elm, for a sumac. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we're all
I
different.
mean,
It's
we
okay.
need all the diversity because it keeps everything in balance and maintains the health. And anytime that we have a problem, it is due to the interference. And that's currently, since the 1910s, is basically white flour and all of the industrial oils. These were all the oils that they processed were all side effects from the wars. These are chemicals, you guys, that they decided, oh, why don't we just sell it to people and let them eat it?
Yeah,
Oh,
like Crisco.
yeah, like
Crisco.
Crisco is 1,000,000% a petrochemical poison.
Yep.
So Anna, we got Living on Arkansas saying, is there a recommended program to claim land to begin an organic non-GMO homestead? Well, for homesteaders, just by the way, you could start doing that yesterday. You don't need to wait to do that.
No.
We're talking about, you guys, hey, Greg, let's break it down for everybody. Agriculture versus farming. So,
Yeah.
you know what? When you take agriculture, you could put it across the veil on that side with all the persons, and farming on the side of the living men, and the unincorporated. So, homesteading is farming.
Mm-hmm.
And the largest regenerative farms on America right now are not operating in agricultural practices. They don't meet any of the definitions for agriculture, and they aren't funded by agriculture. They aren't insured by agriculture. They can't operate at all in any way, shape, or form and be protected under anything agricultural.
Yep.
And everything they do is at their own risk. Anna, does this sound familiar to you with the unincorporated? Yeah. So, what does that mean? That means that when they go to build their house on their land, they can't insure it. That construction insurance or whatever it is, they don't get to do that. When they're putting the infrastructure up for their cows, for their animals, for their gardens, I mean, whatever it is, you want to call it organic, GMO free. First of all, if you're going to go completely GMO free, you might want to think about the sky. How do you manage the sky? How do you manage the microclimate that you want to control to be GMO free? Have you had a meeting with the birds and the bees? Because they're all cross-pollinating everywhere. And one of the ways to really ensure this is to have livestock, because that will create a mini microclimate that actually amazingly will go about 5 to 10 miles up into the air. Greg, is that more or less? Or this is all I know, but
I mean, you definitely do create that climate, and that'll bring more rainfall or less rainfall or whatever, because it'll get the natural microclimate back is what it'll do.
yeah.
And you talk about having all this animals and plants. Look at it from a business perspective. It's called being vertically integrated,
Yes.
right? That's the key. Think about it. If you don't like to think about it from nature, think about it from business. Think about it from money. Vertically integrate, diversify. That fits into our discussion we were just having. That way you have more various products to feed to yourself and your family, but also to barter and trade with others. Have chickens, have pigs, have lambs. That's what the old timers did. They had it all.
Yep.
I don't think they did it because they knew they were creating a microclimate. I may be wrong in that. Some of them probably did, but others were like, I just want to survive. It's
multiple enterprises. Like you have the hustles going on. You can call it a hustle, you can call it whatever you want. But when you have strawberries that are ready and you got eaters that maybe aren't ready in your area, or they've ate enough until they're
last week.
Yeah, they ate strawberries till they're blue in the face. Well, now you got to do something with the strawberries, right? Because they're still coming up. Well, that's where jam comes from.
Yep.
All the preserves. You know,
Yep.
you got the seconds and the thirds. You try to sell them, and then you take the seconds and the thirds, and you make the preserves, you make the jams, you do all the value added stuff with that. Well, what are these corporatocracy doing? Buying seconds and thirds. They don't even buy the firsts.
Yep.
That crap in the store is seconds and thirds, and then they spray poison spray all over it, and then they preserve it for a whole month. Ugh.
So what I would say
Reasons to get out of the grocery store.
Yeah, we do. And what I would say back to that question is, can you hear me okay, Niti?
Yeah. Is it me?
Yeah, it must be.
We can hear you.
Okay. So, yeah, we can hear you, Niti. So what I would say back to that question, though, is if I remember exactly what the question was, the land values and the bank, that's a separate topic that we can talk about. But how do you get started? I think the key, from me anyway, was my central point was, how do I restore the soil? And if I can restore the soil, everything else will correct from there. So now just don't think about GMO, non-GMO, organic, non-organic, all that. Start with thinking about the soil. And I think when you do that, what you'll find is you want to build your organic matter. You want to build the structure of the soil. We talked about this last week. You want to get it to where it holds that water. You want to get it to where you can detox the soil of all the stuff that has been dumped on it. But if you do that, then everything else will work out. And to do that, I think it takes all the above. It takes plants. It takes multi-species of sizes of animals. It takes that vertical integration to make that happen. You can do it, I think, with one or two things, but it'll take you a lot longer. If you really want to restore the soil in a fairly short amount of time, 6-7 years, you can do it with that multi-species. Well, Joel Salatin does it. He's proven it over and over and over again. I mean,
well, we already know that monocropping is going to not.
Oh, that'll take it the other way.
You can't do it with just one thing or one enterprise. You have to have multiple enterprises.
Now, isn't that funny how that fits so well into our discussion we just had, Anna, about diversity?
Yeah,
you can't just do it with one thing.
Because the land and the soil is a reflection of everything on the land and the soil, including
everything around it is a reflection of the land and the soil. It's funny how it's a symbiotic relationship.
Is this a big
it is a reflection of the land and the soil, and vice versa.
And Anna, didn't you say that's the tradition for our American government? Is all the circles working together? We're not linear. We're not corporate minded.
Right.
Yep.
We're community minded, and our communities are diverse.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about, there's a reason why we called the Global Family Bank the Global Family Bank, because we look at it as a global family of man. It's all of mankind. Okay. We included everybody. And we all have a need for banking services. We all need honest banking. We all need simple banking. I mean, we don't need the SEC and all the bells and whistles. And, what we need is simple and something that works, something that is friendly to the vendors and friendly to the consumers, so that it's all just simple. That's what we really need. The vast numbers of people on this planet do not need to rig commodities. Okay, that's not in our job description. It's not anything that benefits us. We're not engaged in those sorts of manipulations of markets and slush funding and securitization and all of this weird stuff that has grown out of banking. Okay, what we need is just plain old banking. Carriage accounting. What comes in, what goes out. Okay, and so we wanted a simple system that anybody could use anywhere on the planet and get what they needed out of it. Be able to transact what, buying and selling in a very simple way. Okay. So, a global family, if you think of things in terms of a global family, it just erases so much BS. Okay? You can stop being afraid. You can stop spending more than half of your income defending against enemies that don't exist. You can focus on the things that really are problems for humanity and deal with those. I mean, just think of the guns and butter argument. Are you going to spend your money on guns, or are you going to spend your money on butter? Well, if you're scared half out of your mind and you think your neighbor is going to come clobber you over the head, you'll spend it on guns. But if you think that you have a peaceful environment and you know you have good relations with your neighbor, you're going to spend it on butter, right? This is human nature. So we've got these guys that have made tremendous money off of war. And they want to keep you in that mode of spending money on guns, on guns, on guns. They want to keep you scared. They want to keep you at somebody else's throat, or they want somebody at your throat. They want to create this constant war for profit. And we have to grow up. We have to get beyond that. We have to see the big picture and realize, hey, we're being manipulated. We're being, we're at the mercy of these warmongers. They're making all this money off of killing people. They're redirecting most of the resources of society to think up new and better ways to kill and to maim and to pollute and to murder. I mean, what is life about? What are we about? Where are our values? And where is our energy going in this scenario?
Yeah.
If you don't want war, don't stockpile for war.
Yeah.
Okay? It's really pretty simple. If your intentions are peaceful, well, have a well thought out defense, have reasonable technology, but don't let that be your focus.
Yeah.
People say to me, well, what are we going to do with all these military contractors and all these soldiers and 950 bases all over the planet? Are they all going to be unemployed? I've got a better purpose for them. And it uses the same skills. Instead of figuring out more better ways of killing people, why don't we figure out more better ways of preserving the peace and the health and the safety and the cleanliness of the planet? Why don't we just turn that 180 degrees around and, okay, we've already got the means to kill everyone on this planet, something like 172,000 times. Okay, so we already have that covered. We can stop spending on that now. And what we can take that energy and that money and that focus, we can take that and turn it around and go, okay, so how do we eradicate this problem? What does it take to clean up the water in the ocean? What does it take to rebalance mineral content in the soil? We have enough problems that we could solve that we're not solving because we're stupidly thinking up more ways to kill people.
Yep.
Long after that ceased to be any question.
Yeah.
Okay, so my suggestion is that all the military should be converted lawfully into a true military, not a mercenary force for hire, okay, but a true military. And they should be set to work solving problems of urgent need. How to get water to parched areas, how to rebuild the soil in the Sahara Desert, how to bring back, sanitary conditions, how to, how to repopulate, how to restore, what kind of housing is really healthy for people, What can we do to improve upon conventional housing designs to promote the free flow of oxygen? How can we repair our oxygen balance in the atmosphere? Everybody has been so completely backwards concentrating on carbon dioxide when the real problem is lack of oxygen.
Oh my gosh. Can
Amen.
you know, like organic, friends, means of carbon.
Yeah.
We require carbon dioxide and oxygen. There's a whole balance even with nitrogen. Why is it that at night, what do you think happens at night, friends? Like, didn't we forget that at night all the plants release the nitrogen?
Yep.
It's the reason why you don't want to have a bunch of plants in your bedroom, because when it off gases that way, that nitrogen is harmful for you and you need more oxygen. But sleeping outside is different because the plants can't do the same thing. You're outside, so you have like a more of a balance. But when you're in a closed room with plants, it can almost be toxic.
Well, we have lots of toxic air situations.
Yeah.
Most homes in this country don't have enough ventilation.
Let's just talk about that, because
Yeah.
when you're inside, also, how about don't be inside all the time? Also, why does everything that's supposed to be outside, why do you try to bring it inside? That's out in the cities. I mean, New York is just like a big stupid burger, because that's what's causing most people's illnesses is city. That's what we talk about this, right? Greg, he knows that all the farmers are like, oh, that's one of those city.
I'm actually sitting here, I'm looking outside and the sun's shining and it's green grass, and I'm thinking the same thing.
You're like, why am I inside? What's going on
inside?
And why do we build cities the way we build cities?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe because they want to control. The corporatocracy is trying to control y'all with
burn
this.
burn more oil, right? Drive more, burn more oil.
Within 15 minutes of each other.
Well, why not redesign cities so that they are better for human life?
Yeah.
And life in general. You know, you're point sourcing huge amounts of waste. Why don't we solve the problem of sanitation once and for all?
Yeah.
You know, why don't we figure out something smarter to do with garbage than dig a hole and bury it like a cat burying scat?
Yeah.
You know, are we so stupid and so limited that we can't turn our attention to solving these huge major problems and spend money on that instead of on more better ways to kill people? Hello. So I would, number one, convert the military back into a true military. And number two, I'd sick them on problems like that.
I love it. I mean, I really enjoyed your recent articles, Anna, where you are laying it out. This is the militia. This is what our, National Guard was supposed to be. Why are you trying to turn it into whatever something else? And you have explained all these bits and bats. This is wonderful. I hope people are reading these articles.
So let's talk about carbon. We were talking about carbon, right? So do you know when carbon is at its highest in the Northern Hemisphere? Early spring. Now why would that be? Do you know why that would be?
Well, I imagine it's because all of the dead things that have been from the prior season are out there exposed to the air and decaying.
It's tillage.
Just because you're tilling the earth.
You till, because when you till and rip the ground, you release carbon dioxide. That's the smell of dirt that you smell. So that spring tillage, to get the fields ready for planting, creates the most carbon dioxide in the air of any other time of the year. And then they get the plants in the ground and they start to grow. And guess what? It sucks it all back down into the ground. They're the best carbon capture devices ever created as a plant.
Well, and carbon itself is such a tiny, tiny percentage of the atmosphere that
it is.
This mania about carbon dioxide is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Ultimately loony.
We can fix any so-called problem. I say that problem, air quote, right? We can fix that with just good soil practices. Any perceived problem, I'll say. And what I mean by that is more realistic. I think that we probably were meant to have more of a natural carbon amount, a more steady state, and not this like it is. That's because of us. I will say that's probably because of us, but it's a simple solution to solve, or a simple problem to solve. So,
and nature takes care of it.
Oh yeah, it'll balance it out real well. Yeah.
So, it is what's fast. Nature, like the body, is very hardwired to fight to live.
Yeah.
Your body is trying to fight for your life all the time, even if you're not. If you jump off of a boat to try to commit suicide, but you knew how to swim, that's not going to be very good for you. Yeah. Your body's going to fight to try to do this. I think people don't give enough credit to nature.
No.
Obviously, our bodies are wired to survive, because none of us would have survived our teenage years otherwise.
If you think about it, we don't need to spend more money on war.
No.
We don't need to spend more time on fear.
No.
And we don't need to spend more effort creating barriers. What we need to do is look at the problems that surround us, the real problems, not the fake problems, not the little goads used to manipulate us, but at the actual things that are present and observable, like declining soil fertility, air quality, lack of oxygen, huge problem. Deforestation, water management. Why do we have so much water in some areas and none in others? What can we do to balance things out? Why is it so difficult to get potable water to people in Africa?
Because there's men standing in between the solution.
With guns.
Making money off of ignoble aims, out of manipulation, fear, and things that are just ugly. So let's stop spending our money on that.
Right.
Living men are not interested in warring with each other. That's the corporatocracy.
I don't know if it's this way for everybody, and I'm an engineer and a farmer, so I'm naturally a problem solver, but that's what I get the greatest joy from, is solving problems. So all these things you're talking about, and I suspect a lot of people are that way. Let's focus on the real problems, and there is such satisfaction coming up with solutions to real problems.
Yes, there is. And there's so much to be gained. I mean, all that happens with a war is that you destroy something and have to rebuild it. Endlessly, over and over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stupid. It's like little kids building a castle and knocking it down, and building another castle and knocking it down. And we've been engaged in that for millennia.
Yep.
So let's grow a brain.
Yep.
Look at the world as it really is, and come to different conclusions, create different institutions, and have faith in different things. I mean, we have seen how our institutions have failed us. And even such services as you think of banking. Banking should be stupidly simple.
Yeah.
It should be just a matter of chits in, chits out. There should be nothing to it.
That's right.
Okay? But instead, we've got this mammoth megalopoly of monopolistic interests, all trying to control and manipulate and have their little puppets out there and have their representatives. And, it's just doing nothing but bleed the planet and the people dry.
Yep.
And even the concept of government. People, you say the word government and they glaze over and they think of this big, threatening, ugly bureaucracy.
That controls you.
Let's be honest. That's what they think of. They think of this big, ugly, oppressive, coercive, bunch of thugs that are going to bleed you dry and threaten you and harm you and your family.
Yep.
Now, how far away is that from the concept of the government's mission? Its job is to protect the people and their assets. That's the only reason that we even have a government. If we didn't, that government is useless. Government has no purpose other than to protect the people and their assets. And if your government isn't doing that, then your government has failed. So I say that the government that we have, such government as we have, the government provided by our erstwhile subcontractors, has failed miserably. I give them all a big red F, if possible, an F minus.
I mean, the corporatocracy knows how to do nothing but compete and create competition and division and manipulation. And that is not what the living people are interested in ever. And they've only ever been interested in it if they were trying to, like, that's this false belief of success. Yeah. The people that fall for that lie, those are the people that are interested in that. And that's the other thing, like the whole idea of how are we supposed to do this without that? How are we supposed to do this without that? I don't know. There's plenty of us doing things without them. And it's not easier necessarily.
Pretty darn easy and enjoyable to do it without them.
It's fun. And it's a challenge. But, I think everyone, it's so easy for folks to just, Anna, argue for their limitations on a constant basis. That's all they're doing. And all the energy they spend arguing for their limitations, arguing for needing to know what is going on in every single moment for somebody to come and save them, but not for them to ever do anything to just help themselves and stop thinking about who's coming.
Nobody's coming to save you.
If you just go get busy doing something, guess what? You're not going to even probably notice when they do come with the solutions that you think are.
It goes back to the discussion a few weeks ago where you were talking about the urban, rural, bringing the urban kids out to the rural. Just go follow a farmer around for a day when the equipment breaks. Nobody shows up to fix that. That's the old saying of baling wire and duct tape will fix anything. Well, sometimes it does, but nobody shows up to just fix it for you. It's that farmer ingenuity. You have to figure it out. And we need to get back to more of that where, okay, this broke. Well, what am I going to do now? I'm going to have to figure out how to get it fixed.
Well, and find new ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Or rediscover old ways of doing things.
Yeah, even better.
Right.
It's we have a responsibility for our lives and for our planets and for our families. And, this idea that somebody is going to be your nanny all your life has to go.
That's a sickening idea.
Well, it is. And, we've been nanny stated to death.
We have.
And that's the problem. Everybody's just sitting around, and that's what creates the blame game.
Oh, yeah.
It is 1,000,000% why everybody's just sitting around. Well, whose fault is it?
Yep.
It's always somebody's fault.
Oh, and God forbid that you take any part of the blame.
Right.
But, that's all part of the nanny state mentality. It's all part of a bureaucratic mentality. Who worries about who's to blame? Bureaucrats, because bureaucrats fear being caught not doing their job and getting fired. Okay. So they're always trying to cover their butts. But and people that live an independent and free lifestyle, they don't worry about somebody firing them.
That's right.
They're already self-motivated. They're already, moving and grooving. They're already out there doing their thing. So, they don't have the bureaucrat mentality.
You got to start collecting skills like baseball cards. But I mean, I mean, I don't know what to compare it to because I guess people don't know anything about collecting baseball cards, Anna. I mean, I don't know what people collect, but like, we're always putting, our sons and daughters are encouraged to learn a new skill every season. Every season, they're trying to learn something, one more thing, because and the one thing, we've had friends come over and our son and daughter are constantly busy doing something. They can't believe that my son will get up and go outside on a Saturday and start fixing something or working on a project on his own. I didn't say nothing to him about it. Like, he's just doing it. Or my daughter. But, they've learned the value of self-sufficiency. If you know how to do things, guess what?
You do more.
Like to do things.
I think we've also been taught the wrong thing about failure. Failure is a part of life. You're going to fail at probably everything you try at least once. And you can't be afraid of it. You got that's how you're going to learn a new skill. You go out there and whatever it is. Yeah. You fall down, you get back up and you say, well, I didn't do that quite right. Let me try it a different way. And that's just the way it works. People want a book handed to them. I hear this so often. Well, I need to go to class so somebody can teach me how to do whatever it is. Well, you probably don't. Maybe you ought to just go try it.
We didn't even have YouTube either. Like nowadays,
yeah, that's true.
I can just YouTube it. I'm like, yeah, you're so lucky because we didn't have that.
No. My great grandmother said, just learn everything you can. Learn all your life, all the time, because that's like money in the bank.
Yep.
Every skill that you have, every insight that you possess is your money in your bank, and nobody can take it from you.
Yeah. That's right.
That's a real good argument, right?
Yeah.
We're sitting here, we're all scratching our heads, looking at bailouts and bail-ins and debanking and different schemes to fund the government and different schemes to steal money from the people. Tariffs and sales taxes is just a different means to the same end. Yeah. And we really need to stop and think. Really, just think. Here's Mr. Trump. Oh, we're going to destroy the Federal Reserve and get rid of the Internal Revenue Service. We're gonna fundamentally change, restrict, or get rid of the central banking system worldwide. Well, guess what? The central banks were born from tariffs. Okay.
Yep.
The tariffs are the original central instrument of central banks.
Yep.
What in the hell are we talking about? Oh, we're getting rid of the federal income tax. Maybe because it was illegal to begin with and always has been. Okay. But so we're finally getting rid of the federal income tax for all the people that don't have federal income and for all of those who should never have had to pay it anyway because it's illegal to enforce a kickback payola tax. Okay. All right. So now we're getting rid of that, but we've got a 17% sales tax. 17% is a healthy wallop.
Yep.
And everybody's going to be paying it.
Yep.
Those who are unemployed, those who are on limited incomes, everybody is going to have to pay that. No exceptions. So they're actually coming out ahead and they're maintaining their central bank system and their commodity rigging. And yet, this is being hailed as a wonderful thing and Mr. Trump is a savior? No. If Mr. Trump were offering us a good, stable, asset-backed currency system and a simple banking system that didn't threaten to, keep us from trading and that didn't require, handing over your firstborn in order to participate, then we would be doing something. But we're not doing anything. We're just shuffling the cake, you know. We're taking the chocolate piece and putting it on the right-hand side and the vanilla piece and putting it on the left-hand side, and then we're reversing them. It makes no sense. There's no solution to the problem of commodity rigging and taxation. Whether you call it a tariff or a tax is completely, it's the same thing, okay? It's even carried out by the same people, okay? So now you've got the IRS people, and they've been scrubbed. You know, they got their painters, their sign painters out there. They're going to take away the set, and they're going to obliterate the name. And now they're going to be tariff collectors.
It's the ERS, wasn't it? The External Revenue Service instead of the internal.
I was wondering if, Anna, they were going to use the External Revenue Service.
They did.
No, but I thought they were going to start using that for us, because they were like, oh, well, since you're not the federal employee, then you would be the ones to pay the tax. And so I thought he was trying to flip it that way. I was like, oh my God, what is he doing?
Well, he's collecting some of the tax base off of foreign trade. Well, I won't argue with him in some respects. I mean, there's no reason for us to lay our market straight open for people that are charging us a 248% tariff on goods and services. Sure. So just to be clear here, it's not that I say that there shouldn't be tariffs in situations like that. There should be. We should match them blow for blow. But realistically, tariffs are the instruments of central banks, and they're used and have always been used, and in fact were created for the purpose of commodity rigging. And I know that because way back in the family history, one of my ancestors created central banks. And he created the bank specifically for Frederick of Prussia, Frederick the Great, because Frederick the Great wanted a means to restrict the trade in coffee in Prussia. He wanted to restrict the amount of coffee coming into Prussia and the amount of German silver going out to places like Colombia. Okay? So he used the central bank as a means to rig the supply and the price of a commodity, coffee. And the tariff was the means used to do that.
Nope.
So if we understand tariffs, and we understand that tariffs are basically taxes employed to manipulate commodity supplies and prices, then we understand that the central bank was created to employ tariffs as a means to do this. We've already got the whole story set out there in front of us. You can't tell us that you're going to destroy the central banking system and you're going to use tariffs to do it. I mean, this is the ultimate briar patch scenario. This is Brer Rabbit saying, don't throw me in that briar patch. Whatever you do, don't throw me in that briar patch. Just give me some tariffs. We'll destroy the IRS. It'll be fine. Yeah, right. Right back into the central banks, right into the commodity rigging, and right into the taxation, because we changed the name of the tax to a tariff, then everything's right, okay?
Yeah.
No, it's not. No, it's not. So anyway, you see what I'm thinking. You see how I'm responding to this whole thing. It's like
every notice. I just saw the latest one, and he does something crazy, and is like, "Whoa, brother, can't do that." Okay, I don't know what you think you're doing, but let me just remind you once again. Just tell everybody what's up. Stop. Just confess to everybody the truth. Just stop it. What are you doing? Yeah. Okay, it is my prayer that he just finally will hear you. But these guys are relentless. I don't see the de facto giving up. I mean, everybody who thinks that Trump is like some kind of savior Are you listening? You know, we were talking to Mookie on Sunday, Greg. Remember, he was like, y'all, are you listening to Trump's language? Like, he's not going to be doing this. He's not playing ball. Are you listening
No,
to
he's
his
a
words?
British Crown officer.
What?
Yeah, right.
He's a British Crown officer. I mean, you know, he's working for the British Crown. So, you know, what do we expect from him? You know, some of the things he's doing are good. Some of the things he's doing are right. I'm not down on him for the, you know, the things that he's doing overall in terms of, you know, trying to get the country back to some sort of common sense reality. Okay, I'm not. He's also doing some good things, reforming the relationship with the DOJ. You know, all of this stuff is needed. It's badly needed, has been needed for a long time. But at the same time, he is functioning as a British Crown officer. And he doesn't have the kind of control that people think he has. He's limited to the policies being sent down from on high.
Yeah.
And he may be in charge of his own little ship here, but he's also responsible to the Admiralty. He's also responsible to the King. He's also responsible to the Parliament. So, you know, there you have it. He's limited in what he can and cannot do. And he's also being kind of managed into doing certain things that, from a more mature perspective, don't make any sense or don't actually change the problem.
I've got a question, kind of going back a few steps for you, and I missed last night's podcast, but we were talking about the Global Family Bank, and you know really how critical that is. It's super critical. My question for you is, there was I think maybe you made a comment about people stepping up to help. I've since had a couple of folks on the Kansas Assembly ask me, "Hey, how can I get training to help, you know, with the GFG or help, you know, facilitate this?" So I just thought I would ask is, so our situation in Kansas, our coordinator is the GFG coordinator. I'm the treasurer on our assembly and effectively co-coordinator, however you want to look at that, of the GFG. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is what do we want to do to get this set up to where we can get more assembly members if they want to step up and help? What's the proper path to take?
There really isn't a hard and fast restriction on who can participate in that training.
Okay.
They started out with coordinators, and because they were addressing the coordinators, it was assumed that it was just only the coordinators. But in fact, you know, elected assembly chairmen, treasurers, members of the banking committees, people that are really interested and want to get trained on the new system so that they can help others and help troubleshoot. You know, anybody can, who's, you know, somebody that is interested in that within their assembly can volunteer and get trained. We need people on the ground. That's why we're doing the training.
Yeah, that's good. We have a banking committee meeting every 2 weeks, and it'll be this coming Monday. And that's what I told them is I said, let's convene at our banking committee meeting. And I, you know, wanted to ask you this today, but that was my thought is I doubt you're going to turn people away that have an interest to help.
No, dream on. I'm going to be standing there like, you know, a hungry dog going, yes, more. Come on, come on. More people, more people. Let's do what we can.
Yeah.
Anna, you got a volunteer here.
Great.
Leanne Vitalis. She wants to volunteer to be the GFG liaison. And so when everybody's saying, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet?
Well,
all she wants to do is be the feed with the solutions. You see this?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She's got the whole outline right here for you.
Well, great.
I
Send
know
it to me as an email, but and
said
maybe
they
there is a need for a special liaison office or customer service office, but that was that's part of what's the rollout with the actual.
There you go, Anna.
Customer service.
I think these people think that I don't want them to ever get in touch with you or something, but that is not even the case.
No, everybody can get in touch with me. It's all over the internet. It's all over my books.
Yeah.
My address is there free for the use.
Anna loves hard mail, like real mail.
Now, how much bandwidth you have is another story.
That's another story, yes. But
yeah.
I've gotten a lot of concern from assemblies who are scratching their heads and saying, well, we can't afford to buy, brick and mortar buildings and staff them and do all that kind of stuff. Well, no, we're not expecting you to. That is an expense coming off the bank side of it, But once you have the brick and mortars there, then they will have customer service personnel able to help you. And there will be people in your assemblies who will be able to help you. And, it will be a whole different world.
I've got my bank building, from 1904 here in my little town, ready to go. I want it to be a brick and mortar GFG bank one of these days.
Yeah. Well, and that's how it develops. That's how it grows.
Yeah.
Is that you have this local effort combined with the bank effort, and before you know it, you've got your own bank, your own prosperity institution, I should say, your own prosperity network and prosperity center. Okay. So you're going to have a facility that will allow you to do banking, that will allow you to access prepaid credit that is restitution for things that you paid for that you didn't need to pay for and shouldn't have paid for. And so don't worry about how you're going to pay for the bank or the building. That's not being left to the assemblies to do. Once the assemblies are funded, it's a funny process because here you have the United States of America out there clawing back money and bringing forward these restitution issues. And on the other side, you've got all these other people that are out here doing their thing, and there has to be a balancing. Okay, there has to be a system that works for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So don't worry too much about things like how are you going to pay for a brick and mortar building. Worry more about not being sold a wooden nickel. Okay, worry more about not being gypped. Worry more about not being defrauded. Put on your Shinola sensors to high and really look at and examine things, and don't just assume that.
Oops.
You know the meaning of a word. Take it up, look it up, take that little moment in time to really understand what a tariff is, and you'll see that it's a tax, and it will change the way you look at the whole picture. Oh, I'm being summoned.
Uh-oh.
Well, we went way over our time, and so
we did.
Anna, and we love you so much. We hope you have a blessed day, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, dear.
All right.
Bye, everybody.